I'm glad to welcome into the program a man who I know doesn't believe in those sorts of things. He is the Michigan Senate Majority Leader, the Republican from Clark Lake, Mr. Mike Shirkey, joining us again on the show. Great to have you with us, Senator. How are you this morning? I hope well.
I am very fine, Frank. Thank you, and hope the same for you. You're not having any trouble finding things to talk about on your show, are you?
Not at all, sir. Not at all. Well, and you were preceded by Rudy Giuliani, so how's that?
I was listening very tentatively to Rudy, and they sound like they've got a pretty robust plan that they're attempting to execute, and I hope they get a chance to present what they have in front of a judge and let the process play out.
Mm-hmm. You are taking a close interest in what's going on with the vote count here in Michigan, I know. In fact, a couple of senators on your side are asking Jocelyn Benson, our Secretary of State, to perform some kind of audit of the election, correct?
Yeah, when Voters Not Politicians passed the new redistricting laws and so forth in 2018, included in that was a clause that allowed for any citizen to call for an audit of the election, and I don't think this is inappropriate. And frankly, I think it's in light of all of the anecdotal evidence that we've heard about. I think it's a perfectly legitimate request, and I'm hoping that it's not just my two colleagues that are calling for the audit, but I think the citizens generally across the state should exercise their privilege and do the same.
Yeah, those two being Tom Barrett of Charlotte and Lana Theis is how you say it, right?
Theis is the way I would put it. Yes, Lana Theis. Yes, very, very excellent colleagues of mine in the Senate, and we work very closely together. They are passionate about making sure that we're following the laws, and I was not surprised at all that they had taken that action, and we'll encourage the Secretary of State to give it due consideration. How
would you describe the relationship between the majority in the Senate and the Secretary of State?
So, Secretary Benson and I have had a number of phone conversations and a couple of meetings in my office. We haven't gone to meet in her office yet. Cordial, detailed, impassioned. We haven't had one recently, and there are a few things that our oversight committee is going to ask she and her office to come in and talk about in committees here over the next couple of weeks. Things that have occurred that we've witnessed, that other people have witnessed, that other people have reported on. And this is all related to, this is the first time that we've really, embraced this full-throated mail-in balloting. And we've got have identified plenty of examples where the chain of custody, if not broken, has certainly been compromised. And so we think that there's probably going to be some very important discoveries as we do this oversight to make our election laws more robust. I think there's some holes and some vulnerabilities in our current laws as they exist. And so we intend to fully pursue this analysis. It is not the expectation that our analysis will result in any change in the outcome. However, who knows what we discover. And I would characterize what we're doing is in parallel to what the Rudy Giuliani and the Trump campaign folks are doing, not in concert with.
I say, you want to know whether there was any compromise of our system, and if there was, you want to know how to fix it, it sounds like.
That's exactly right. And our laws are pretty specific. We have the Michigan statutes, and the previous legislatures have delegated a lot of the responsibility to the Secretary of State. And there's pretty specific instructions as to how poll watchers are allowed and must have access to be able to view the things they need to view. And one of the things that came to my mind after hearing all of the stories, particularly around the TCF Center and so forth, is that if we had just been calmed down and everybody practiced the golden rule and treated people respectfully that night, much of this angst would be significantly reduced. The observations and the things that occurred still may have happened, but they really got emotional that night, and that's too bad because it's an important process, and I think that's also a lesson that we need to learn, and that in the future, remind people that this is very important, and people need to stay calm and be respectful and listen to one another when being asked questions, and instead of, jumping to conclusions and letting the anger and emotions take over. So I think there'll be a lot of lessons learned as we retrospectively review this election process.
And that goes for our leaders too, those who hold the highest offices in the state, right?
Indeed.
So,
it applies to everybody. Yeah, it applies to everybody.
Yeah, back off a little, and we don't need the threats and the bad mouthing and all of the bitter partisanship. Everybody's going to be partisan in some way in politics, but it's the bitterness that comes up, and that really taints the entire system for us, and that's what we've seen this year.
That's right. I noticed you also just had John Fox on your show, and I would like to, with your permission, pivot a little bit to that topic, which is equally important. And I want to kind of phrase this and frame this for your listeners because it kind of puts it in perspective. Back in March and April, it was estimated that about 10% of us had heard of somebody who may have been affected by COVID. Now in November, it's estimated that 65% of us know somebody, in many cases very intimate, that have been affected by COVID, despite all of our efforts to, shut down, lock down, and practice safety. So this COVID, Mother Nature, I've never seen Mother Nature be defeated, and this is part of that process. So I do want to reinforce that the infection rates are very alarming. The increases in hospitalizations are equally alarming. Though the outcomes are better and the length of stays are beginning to shorten a little bit, it's still serious. And so, and I believe the right approach, instead of mandating and instead of browbeating people, that we inform, we inspire, and then we give them calls to action. And in this case, the calls to action, Frank, are to be situationally aware and be very respectful of people's space. Honor the policies of those organizations and places where you go. If they got mask requirements, then wear the mask and don't be contentious about it. Of course, practice very disciplined personal hygiene. Keep your distance. Socially distanced really works. And if you cannot avoid close contact, wear a mask and don't worry about it. Don't worry about what that means. It's not a political statement. It's just something out of respect. And then lastly, and this is the one that's hard, is that because of the contagiousness of this virus apparently is increasing, everybody needs to consider the risk and reward of the kinds of activities they're going to be planning for the holidays. I'm not suggesting people have to cancel their gatherings, but just think about who's there, how many people, and just really think through that process, because what we're finding is that it's those kinds of places and activities are the single biggest source, other than nursing homes still, single biggest source of the spread. So all of those things add up to are the calls to action that people can do. We don't need another statewide mandate. We just need everybody to lock arms and work together on this.
Well, yesterday the governor was slamming the legislature for not coming to the table on these talks about COVID, and it sounds as if you're pretty much in agreement with her on what to do about it.
Other than I think mandates at this stage of the game, based on the history and our practices, would be counterproductive. Let's inform, inspire, and then give people something to take action on.
Senator Mike Shirkey, the Senate Majority Leader, appreciate the time this morning. Keep up the hard work on our behalf, sir.
Yes, sir. Same to you, buddy. Bye-bye.
Talk to you again soon. Mike Shirkey.